Hey, good morning, people. How you all doing today? So, a few thoughts. What is domestic crude supply obligation? It's something that comes about when in a country that produces crude oil, there's an amount that is put in place for what you call local consumption. A lot of talk, a lot of banter about is the Dangote refinery supposed to have depended on the government? Quick answer to that, in my opinion, yes. Now, dependence might not be it, but they should be able to hold the government to account in terms of, okay, this is what you're going to give me. You've got equity in the game. This is what we've agreed. A lot of talk about no agreement had been in place. Crap, in my opinion. But you see, what the domestic crude supply obligation mandates is that on a willing buyer, willing seller basis, there's some kind of calculation to say that this is how much the refineries locally would use. So that amount is basically set aside. If that amount is set aside, so what it means is that if we use the old template of 445, and I think we need to be clear about this, the old template of 445 is based on what they thought the capacity of the refineries were then. I don't think there's a topic of discussing how we should upgrade or reduce that, because the truth of the matter is that there's been zero refining capacity. So this is the point. If you have 445,000 barrels, if we do a straight net off, and I'm going to use 1.4 million barrels for the purposes of this conversation. If I use 1.4 million barrels as what we have, then it means that there's a joint venture agreement between IOCs and NNPC. So 60% of that amount, and for the purposes of simplicity, let's just say 50%, just for the purpose of simplicity. So 50% is 700,000 barrels. NNPC is geared, or shall I say leveraged, to about 90,000 on the Gazelle project. And I believe there's a 35,000, if my memory serves me right. So I'll use 30, and it's just for analysis purpose. If I use 30, 90 plus 30 is 120. So it means that if we have 700 and we've taken out 120, yeah, it means that we're down to 580, correct? If we're down to 580, and what we're saying is that you're supposed to have kept some volume in terms of domestic crude supply obligation, then let's go back to that 445. There is a delta. So it means that they could still pledge some, but at the same time make available that 445. But that 445 is not available. So the question number one for me is, where is that 445? Has NURPC gone ahead to say, look, this circular or this quota is not working? There's a lot of talk about we must increase production. That's fine, but let's get to the basics first. If we have 1.4 as it is, and you have 700,000, what have you done with that 7,000, and what have you been doing with it since the DSDP quote unquote died? And that died when the president said subsidy is gone, in my opinion. But sadly it hasn't died. Sadly, subsidy is back. So the accountability and transparency that we require from NNPC is just not there. And we just keep on digging holes, and expecting to find water. But what we're finding is more sand. NNPC needs to be audited today. NNPC, as it is currently set up, being headed by Mr. Carey needs to step aside. Let this audit happen, and at the same time, let us get into a situation where some of the shares are actually released into the private sector for accountability and probity. I think I've spoken too long on this video. Cheers, everybody.